Hi everybody, welcome to Aimee Nolte Music. When I was about 16 or 17 years old and I was trying to learn how to solo and familiarize myself with the bebop language, I ordered my very first Charlie Parker CD. It was Charlie Parker with strings. And when it came, I put it in and I started listening, and I very mistakenly thought, oh no, this is all slow stuff. I'm not going to learn anything about soloing from this album. It was so naive. So stupid. And I put away the album for a little while. Sometimes we're stupid when we're kids. It didn't take long before I learned that this was one of the most beautiful, absolutely breathtaking recordings that Bird ever made in his lifetime, and I dove back into it. Today, on what would be Charlie Parker's 100th birthday, I want to talk to you about this great recording. Between the years 1949 and 1952, Charlie Parker recorded with strings a handful of times. He said it was his dream to record with strings. And although it wasn't a full orchestra, in fact, 3 violinists, 1 violist, 1 cellist, and a harp, plus jazz rhythm section, the results were phenomenal. And Bird said that playing with strings was his favorite thing he ever did during his career. On the original Charlie Parker with Strings recording date, there were 6 tracks. Stan Freeman was on piano, Ray Brown on the bass, and Buddy Rich on the drums. The date was produced by Norman Granz, and Jimmy Carroll was the arranger and conductor. I think when people learn jazz improvisation and they dive into bebop and to Charlie Parker, they're listening to his upbeat recordings, the Coco, the Blues for Alice, the Ornithology. But I want to talk to you about something today that should have just been clearly, absolutely obvious to me from the first listen of Charlie Parker with Strings, and that's that nobody could play a melody like Bird. It's not to say that you can't listen to these recordings and cop a whole bunch of great bebop lines, because you can, and I have. But one of the most beautiful things I've ever learned from Charlie Parker is how to phrase a melody. Sit with me a second and watch how I practice as I listen to Charlie Parker play Everything Happens to Me, phrase by phrase, on this timeless recording. Now, you know I can't play great big clips of any song or I'll get demonetized, so small clips, but this is how I practice this kind of thing anyway. Da 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 da. I can't do the vibrato on the piano. So many great little tidbits in there. Now I'll go through and I'll listen to the whole thing again, but in slightly longer phrases, and see if I can copy them. But right after him this time. See, the first time I did it, I had a chance to sing it exactly how he played it and then try to play it exactly how he played it, even though my instrument is vastly different than his. But the next time, I already had the notes kind of worked out, had my little kinks and mistakes ironed out, and as soon as he played the line, I could play it back. The next thing to do is to do this enough times so that eventually I can play it exactly with him, exactly as he played it. Da 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 ooh. I know that a lot of you won't be able to play these phrases, hear the phrases, sing the phrases, play the phrases quite as quickly as I do. But that's okay. Try not to be discouraged by that. Sometimes you might have to just start on the very first note of the phrase. This little tiny enclosure or embellishment of the melody that Charlie Parker does as he comes into the second A section, it's a really common kind of thing to take just a half step underneath the root and embellish like that. It's kind of a classical thing to do, but it's also kind of a jazz thing to do, to enclose the melody note. So that one's kind of familiar to me, and when I heard him do it, I knew what to do. It's a half step under, we go a half step above and back to... Anyway, don't let it discourage you. Sometimes you'll have to do it like this. Sometimes it may take you a little bit longer like that. Being able to vocalize what he plays right after he plays it is key. If you can't sing, if you don't feel like have a strong enough instrument, you can whistle. That's just as good. As long as you can somehow hold on to the pitch with your ear until you can make your hand or your, however your instrument is, and until you can make your body execute it, it's okay. But holding on to those pitches, that's key to being able to imitate what somebody does in a recording or transcribe what somebody does in a recording. I think that's what he did. I think he started there on a D, but I'm going to go back and listen to it again. This is after the bridge, and he's getting back into the next A section. I think I got it slightly wrong, but paused it right after those first three notes. Play them. There it is. And that's so nice. That's another way that he gets into it. This time he doesn't go. So nice. I've learned two different ways to embellish the very first part of a melody. You could do this on almost any song you can think of. Another great takeaway from these recordings are just the arrangements themselves. The fact that sometimes Charlie Parker's the one playing the melody, and sometimes the strings are the ones who take over the melody, and the way that one of them plays the melody and then the other just seamlessly comes in and finishes, and then it trades back off to Charlie Parker. You can get ideas for your own arrangements just by listening to this. If you have, a bunch of horns in your college combo, you can have the trombone playing the melody for the first two A sections, and then when the bridge comes in, you can have your three woodwinds in harmony playing the bridge, and then the trombone can take it over again. Don't just listen to these recordings with one purpose in mind. I mean, this purpose is beautiful, to emulate, to imitate, to copy, to pay tribute, to give respect to Charlie Parker's every movement, every tiny little line, every embellishment of the melody, every milking of a long note. If you've got the right instrument, every vibrato. I don't have the right instrument. But this is the main thing we're paying attention to today. How Charlie Parker could phrase a melody like nobody's freaking business. But as you do it, pay attention to the other things that are going on too. Pay attention to the gentle treatment that Buddy Rich gives to this arrangement on his drum set. Pay attention to the tiny flourishes of the harp. And maybe most importantly of all, pay attention to the way Charlie Parker responds to this amazing setting. It was a dream come true for him. I just want to smack that little 17-year-old Aimee that put the record away for a year. Come on, Aimee. Jeez. But I'm glad that I know the beauty of this album, and I'm glad that I was able to share it with you today on what would be Charlie Parker's 100th birthday. Pay your respects to Charlie Parker by listening to his music today. And in particular, Charlie Parker with strings, all of the string recordings. I think there was a 1995 Verve reissue with all of them. 4 different dates, if I'm not mistaken. I did a nice video about 3 years ago in Kansas City where I visited Charlie Parker's gravesite and talked about him and sang a little bit. If you want a little bit more Aimee's take on Charlie Parker today, you can watch that video. Hey, thanks for watching, everybody. Learn how to phrase your melodies from the masters, and in particular, Charlie Parker. I'll see you next time on Aimee Nolte Music.